All right, so we're here today with Michelle Rakotomalala. She's a wedding professional that is a professional photographer, where she's going to talk to us a little bit about trends. She's going to talk to us a little bit about how to pose for your wedding day and feel a little bit more confident. And I always love to start off our interviews with like or dislike in wedding trends. So Michelle, tell us a little bit about whether or not you like or dislike the current trend of dessert bars. What do you think about that?
Love dessert bars. I think they're so fun. I mean, wedding cakes are great too, but I love that guests can kind of pick and choose whatever kind of dessert they like. I think that's so fun.
Yeah, I have to agree. Dessert bars are so much fun. They really add a different element to your event. But I have to admit, I still love the traditional wedding cake. I just love like the big tiered wedding cake and still, you know, the little cake cutting tradition. I love that too. So I'm kind of on the fence about liking and disliking it. All right, for our second trend, do you like or dislike the pantsuit? Have you heard about that one?
Yes, I love pantsuits for brides. I think it's so different. I love when brides are not afraid to do something different, especially if it really fits their personality and they're not a dress kind of girl. I love that people feel okay just like being themselves and doing whatever they want on their wedding day.
Yeah, I have to agree. Totally love the rocking out the pantsuit. I've seen some really elegant pantsuits for both brides and bridesmaids. Totally love that trend. Also for the third trend, what we're seeing for next year and even kind of towards the end of this year are those living backdrops with foliage, floral, succulents. Do you like or dislike?
I love it. I love anything with lots of flowers and greenery on a wedding day. I think it just brings so much beauty to the wedding day.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely love the living walls. I'm more in kind of the catering side of things, so when they bring in those elements for like bar fronts, food stations, and their head table, love that trend. So that's our like and dislike for this interview today. And now we're just going to dive right into what you do as a wedding photographer. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Michelle.
So I'm a wedding photographer. I've been doing wedding photography for about 3 years now, and it's so much fun. It's seriously my dream job. I started getting into wedding photography right after my own wedding, and that's when I realized I just love weddings so much. They're so much fun. So yeah, I've been doing it for about 3 years now and done about 80 weddings, and
oh wow,
I just love them so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, do you kind of stick right here in the Midwest? Have you traveled around the nation? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mainly work here in Indianapolis. I do travel around the Midwest a little bit, and I am starting to get into destination weddings as well. So I've done a shoot in Paris, and I have a couple coming up next year in Mexico and Puerto Rico. So yeah, I love destination weddings as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Paris.
I
haven't even traveled to Europe yet, so just for you to be able to say you've been to Paris is amazing. Well, I mean, what was that like?
Amazing to get to shoot with the Eiffel Tower as your backdrop. Just like best experience of my life in terms of photography.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of different, you know, scenery, backdrops, different things like that. That's really cool. So, as a professional in weddings and obviously being a photographer, tell us a little bit about, you know, I hear all the time from my brides that reach out to me, you know, how do I pick a dress that suits my body shape and still feel confident? And now we're getting those questions coming in on, you know, posing for the wedding day. So tell us a little bit about how couples can better pose to feel confident in both their dress and just in general.
That's a great question. I would say my number one tip is to trust your photographer in terms of posing. I tell my clients, like, if you want something specific in terms of posing, I will make sure to get it, but I have my whole own posing system that will make you look your best. And if you have something that you're specifically self-conscious about, tell your photographer, because they can definitely help with that and work around it and make sure that that is looking good. So I find that one of the places where brides are most self-conscious is the arms.
Okay.
And brides also really love strapless dresses.
Okay.
So one of my biggest tips for making your arms look flattering is to just hold them away from your body a little bit, because when they're up and against you, it makes them look bigger than they are because they're squished and flat. So just make sure you're holding them out away from you a little bit. And when you're holding the flowers, you know, that's a good way to have something to do with your hands and hold it out away from your body a little bit. And then also the veil can really help here. So if you have a veil, covering it half of your arm, kind of cut your arm in half, makes it look a little bit smaller.
Okay.
And then also I find that for posing, men generally look better when they're facing the camera straight on. and women generally look better when they have their body turned sideways.
Interesting.
So you kind of, I always say hip bone to belly button. So the girl's putting her belly button into the guy's hip bone, kind of cuts her body in half and makes him look great too. That's one of my favorite poses. That's very flattering on everyone.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, as a upcoming bride here in the next year, hearing those different poses is really going to help me too.
Yeah.
So I'm sure some of our couples that are listening today can definitely take those tips and tricks and use that to feel more confident on the wedding day. And then, you know, if they have any other questions, they can certainly reach out to you or their own photographer.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you know, you were talking about, you know, just being a professional in general.
Yeah.
When we were chatting a little bit over coffee,
Yeah.
you were chatting about how, you know, when you meet with couples, they ask you several different questions when they initially meet with you.
Yeah.
What do those questions look like?
I find that most of my couples are very concerned about the timeline, and they want to make sure they plan enough time for photography throughout the day. So I always work with my couples to make sure, you know, you have enough time for getting ready, you have enough time for the bride and groom portion of the day, the bridal party portion of the day, the family portion of the day, and that you'll also have, you know, time for everything at the reception before your photography coverage runs out. So that's definitely something I would talk to your photographer about. And then I find that a lot of couples ask about like what types of details they should bring on the wedding day.
Okay.
Like I always photograph the invitations, the paper sweeps, the rings, and then I always tell my brides and grooms to have all of their details in the bridal suite so that I can just grab those right away. That's the first thing I do on the wedding day. So I'll also have like the groom's watch, the groom's shoes.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so you know, my brides all want to know, you know, what kind of details to bring for that. So yeah, I think those are some of the most common questions.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like they should really be working closely with you as the professional and their own photographer to say, hey, you know, what should I be bringing day up? 'Cause, I mean, I didn't think about having the groom bring his watch or even other like details like cufflinks or something like that. Like that's not something I would have thought of on my own.
So it's something you might want to have pictures of.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great idea. So, you know, speaking more of the day, the actual wedding day, you know, what does that look like from a photographer's perspective?
Yeah. So when I arrive on the wedding day, I usually start with photographing the details. And then if everything's all in one venue and everything is set up already, then I'll go ahead and photograph the reception details and the ceremony details as well. And then the bride getting ready, I'll usually be there just for the last like 30 minutes of that, just to get the touch-ups of the hair and makeup.
Okay.
And then the groom getting ready, and then we'll go into the first look. And then if they're having a first look, which most of my couples do, and then I do about 30 to 45 minutes of bride and groom portraits, about 30 to 45 minutes of bridal party portraits, depending on how many are in the bridal party, and then try to get family out of the way before the ceremony as well. And then for the ceremony and reception, it's usually just candid photos from there.
That's awesome. You know, speaking about first look,
Yes.
I find even, you know, being more in the reception side, the details for the wedding day, that's always a question that pops up for us.
Yeah.
You know, are you doing a first look? Are you seeing each other before the ceremony? I mean, what do you think as a photographer? Do you find that doing a first look is better than waiting to see each other?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think a lot of grooms especially are really hesitant about the first look, and they just want that really special coming down the aisle moment. But I find that first looks usually are really special, just as special as that coming down the aisle moment. And you can do it just between the two of you. You don't have to have that big crowd around making you nervous. You can talk to each other, you can kiss, you can hug, and then you can spend the whole day with each other instead of spending most of the day without each other. And then usually for my couples, it's just as special, that coming down the aisle moment. A lot of my grooms cry twice. They cry during the first look and during the coming down the aisle moment. And then it's really helpful for photography as well, because then we can spend all of that time taking photos before the ceremony, and then you can just go straight from your ceremony to your reception and spend a lot more time with your guests instead of having to spend that time away from them in between the ceremony and reception, or making people wait to eat dinner. People don't like that. So I find it helps the timeline of the day, and it's just like a sweet moment between the bride and groom.
I love that. You know, as as we continue to kind of see trends change,
Yeah.
traditions even change with weddings, I feel like that's a huge one that has come up here in the last couple of years that, you know, first looks have changed the industry entirely. Like we see more first looks now than I ever have seen in the last 5 years. So, you know, and I have to kind of agree with you. Like seeing the first look really does change the overall timeline, and it really helps couples engage with each other more on the wedding day versus it being like this rush around moment of, oh, I gotta get this picture, oh, I gotta get this picture, oh, I have to grab this family member to get, you know, have that one moment with them so they have more time together. And I love that. So, and to hear the 2 moments where the groom cries, how cute. I love that. So we're coming up on wrapping up on our interview, but I wanted to end our interview with one last question, which I always love having all of our wedding professionals provide one piece of advice for our couples. So what would you give to our couples to say, here's one piece of advice to take away?
I would say hire professionals that you love and that you trust so that on the wedding day you don't have to worry about anything. You know your vendors are going to take care of everything, and then it's zero stress for you.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, being in the wedding industry, we see it all the time where, oh, I'm going to hire my friend for my wedding day, where they might be doing it on the side. It's a great piece of advice to say, hey, hire a wedding professional because you don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with our couples. So today we spoke with Michelle
Rakotomalala.
Rakotomalala. It's hard to say. You're so right, and I apologize for butchering that.
Okay.
So it's Rakotomalala, Michelle Rakotomalala Photography. You'll be able to connect with her via her website, Facebook, and Instagram. I'll share a little bit more details about that. And again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.